Last player standing.
Got him. Sorry, of course you know I got him. Sorry.
I'm one of the people who was very, very lucky and got to play the Valorant Alpha last weekend, and I was very, very excited. And to be honest, I didn't know what to expect because I've seen a few different videos and promotional clips and bits and bobs that made it look quite Overwatchy, while Henry G, who I work with a lot in Counter-Strike, had said that actually there's a lot of CS in there, but the game is really fun. So I was thinking this is going to be really hard, but I want to give it a go because learning things is always hard. And I am so glad that I got to be part of it for a multitude of reasons. The first was the fact that we had the devs from the Riot Games team actually to talk us through the specifics of the game, how they have put competitive integrity at the forefront, which they really have.
Yeah!
It was intimidating in some ways as well because I was playing with people who are high skilled players. So when you're queuing and you jump into a solo queue game with some of them, you suddenly discover that you're playing with people you know and really admire, and you're also playing against them. So some games for me went much better than others. I also discovered that the crossover with Counter-Strike is a lot closer than the crossover between Overwatch and Valorant, because the map designs, given that they have Counter-Strike map designers on board, are very complex, really clever. They're going to be so hard to master because they have so many layers of complexity, but they do follow that Counter-Strike formula in terms of your A and B bomb sites. I even played a map which had a C bomb site, so there's no mid.
Stay down.
Last player standing.
Block the sight. No charges left.
My favourite agent I played was Jett, and one of the things I really liked to do was to use her boosting. She sort of has a kind of boost up ability, and I really like to jump onto a double or triple stack of boxes, and then what I do is use her dash ability, her E ability, to dash across to another box that I wanted to get to peek someone. Or if I killed someone on a box, my dash ability would refill, so I could basically kill someone coming to a bomb site, and then I could dash across to another stack of boxes, and then I could potentially take out someone there or keep the enemy guessing as to where I would be.
I was never a sniper.
I will talk more about the agents, but first of all, I want to talk about the guns. Again, this is where the CS comparison really, really does come in because of the economy and because of the weaponry. So if you're an AWPer in CS, you're going to be very, very happy in Valorant. I can't AWP to save my life, but there is basically a scout equivalent and a AWP equivalent in the game. There's also the sheriff, which is hallelujah, like a deagle. In your first round, you've got 800 credits to spend. Are you going to spend them on a sheriff? Are you going to spend them on your abilities? I would say a sheriff if you're attacking, for sure. There's an AK-47 alike, which is called the Vandal.
One enemy remaining.
Weirdly, for me, because I do play a lot of Krieg and Org in Counter-Strike, I kept right-clicking and going to ADS because even the Vandal has ADS. But it doesn't make much of a difference, and for me, I felt like I was stronger with the gun when I wasn't using ADS.
No charges left.
You've got time C unless you want to
10
just kill
seconds
him.
left. One enemy
Yeah.
remaining.
Ooh, ooh.
I did notice, and this is because people were saying it themselves, that the people who hadn't played Counter-Strike before did struggle a bit at first with the gameplay because it's so different to other FPSs. Like if you play Call of Duty, the guns are totally different, whereas the CS crossover is clear. So if you are a CS player, I think you're actually going to really, really enjoy Valorant. The key thing is not to focus so much on the abilities that you forget to have your gun out, because it's almost the equivalent of running with a knife out or running with a nade out in CS. I would sometimes go to set up an ability and then I'd just get taken out. And I realised that because the first agent I played was Viper, and it was an absolute disaster. But then what I decided to do was to move away from focusing on the abilities and to go for it. And I think one of the reasons I had success with Jett is because of her abilities. The way I used them was to get myself into advantageous positions and then to focus on the gunfire, as opposed to trying to block someone or trying to lay a trap for them or things like that. It just came much more naturally for me to go, okay, right, get myself to a boost or to a peak spot and then focus on the gunfire, focus on holding the angle and things like that. So that's why I really, really liked that agent.
30 seconds left.
Let's go, guys.
Okay, cover me.
Spike planted.
One enemy remaining.
However, even though I didn't like Viper at first, who is a poison-based ability agent, I suddenly grew to absolutely love her at the end because the devs showed us how to get the most out of her.
Yeah. Tell me if they come because I've got to keep my eyes on the other entrance. Got one.
Yikes.
Two there.
Got one. Spike's dropped.
Another one there.
She knows where I am. She's got the spike.
One enemy
Got it.
remaining.
Spike's down. Yes!
I didn't get on so well with the agents where you were disrupting the play zone, if that makes sense. So I tried Brimstone, and his abilities are things like earthquake. So you would basically throw your ability forward and it would crack the ground and it could daze and confuse the people on the site. I think I was affected by it when other people played it, but I just couldn't quite get a handle on it. It just wasn't kind of the style that I wanted to play in. So I think that he's an agent that's really essential for good team play. But for me personally, it wasn't an agent I got on with. But I did really, really get on with Phoenix.
Hey, I like this game.
And Phoenix is, as the developers described him, he's a selfish agent. His abilities are for setting himself up. So he has a flash that you can curve one way or the other. So you left click to throw it left, right click to throw it right, and you curve it around corners. I never ever used it without flashing myself. I couldn't work out how to do it, and I think that's probably because I needed to play it in more than one match. But he can also throw fly on the floor, which can block people and stop them from coming back. And his ultimate ability is to place. It's kind of like Tracer's Rewind in Overwatch in a way, in the sense that when you die, you can reverse.
One more.
Joke's over. You're dead.
Sova is an agent who I tried out for one match, and I was kind of curious because I think that a lot of people, when they first saw Sova, thought, oh, he's Hanzo, but he's not really focused on bow and arrow damage. It's a FPS game, right? He's firing guns most of the time, but he does have very interesting reconnaissance abilities. His reconnaissance arrow is really, I'm calling it reconnaissance even though it's not called that, but his recon arrow is really, really useful for surveying the area. So if you see this kind of yellow techie web coming towards you, you want to try and get outside of it, otherwise the enemy can see you. But then you can use that to fake because they only see you for like a second or something. I think Sova's going to be a really, really important agent, and he can do a lot of damage as well. He has his ultimate, which will charge up, and you've got a certain amount of charge, so you could use it 3 times, you could use it a couple of times depending on how much charge you want to give to an attack. Ultimately, I think this game's going to appeal to people who like a large skill curve, who are very much into their FPS shooters. I think people who love Counter-Strike are going to love it because I think it's something different. Is it a Counter-Strike killer though? No, nothing's going to kill Counter-Strike. It's just not. The scene's too developed and the game is just too good. It's amazing. But I do think that Valorant offers something with a lot of depth, something that people of different skill bases are going to enjoy. You need to work on your gunplay. You won't be a good player unless you do. But at the same time, you can still work with people on your team in terms of their strength. So when you're choosing agents, actually that's going to have a huge impact, because really what you're doing is, instead of buying nades and flashes and things, you're buying abilities at the start of each round. And one of the differences between the Counter-Strike economy and the Valorant one is that yes, you have to rebuy your guns and your shields, but you don't have to rebuy abilities if you die between rounds. I don't know if that's something they're going to change. I personally was very happy that they didn't change it, because it meant that, hey, I could save my abilities, but I could still go in for fights. And that made me a little bit happier. And I don't know if that's something they will change for the future. They may very well. In terms of performance, the game ran really well, I have to say. I didn't have any issues when I was in game with bugs or anything like that. I think a few other people might have, but for me, performance-wise, it ran really well. It didn't look like an alpha. So yeah, I think I'm definitely going to become a Valorant player. Is it going to be my main game? I don't know, but I would be so interested to see what they do with it in terms of the esports scene, because from everything I saw, and because it's Riot Games, there's going to be a competitive scene for this. Absolutely. Who is going to be a full-time professional Valorant player for reals? We'll see. It's not going to be me, but I will be playing, for sure.
Yay!